Once again, we're going to figure out who to start at wide receiver for fantasy football. And we know one team won't have its top target. Chris, did you see that whole thing with DK Metcalf suspended now for 2 games? Like, that is crazy. What do you think that guy said to him?
I think he probably said your QB, Aaron Rodgers, is completely washed up.
Come on, everybody already knows that. It had to be something worse.
All right, maybe he said Ole Miss is going to get stomped in the college football playoffs.
Maybe, but come on, that wouldn't make him hit him. I mean, what else could he have said?
Oh, I know what he said. He said, you suck, and I'm benching you in fantasy forever.
That's probably it. Well, whatever the case is, look, we need to start the right players this week. It is the fantasy playoffs. Let's get it right for week 17. And there are still a handful of players that are absolute must starts. They are Amon-Ra St. Brown, CeeDee Lamb, Nico Collins, Jamar Chase, Jackson Smith and Jigba, and Puka Nacua. Before we get into the start and sits of every matchup for this week, one quick favor to ask, hit that subscribe button if you haven't yet. We are trying to get to our goal of 100,000 subscribers. Hard to believe we're almost there, but we need your help. If you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, take a second to do that. This week, we're going to have 3 Thursday games because it's Christmas Day. Doesn't belong to the NBA anymore. Let's start with the first one. It's going to be the Cowboys at the Commanders. You're still starting CeeDee Lamb, no questions asked. And, well, maybe we can say that about George Pickens again, can we?
I think so. You got to feel good after last week. Like, you know how it goes with George Pickens. It could be a week where it's like, oh, come on, what's he doing out there? But against the Commanders, there's no way you can bench George Pickens this week. He's got to be a strong start.
Yeah, you had to be worried, but I'm glad I was wrong about Pickens last week. I mean, he came through when we needed him most. We'll say, again, it's not a guarantee. We can't put him in the must-starts like CeeDee. Not quite as dependable. And look, this is the Commanders, obviously a terrible defense, but he only had 82 yards, 4 catches in their last matchup not long ago. But still, if you have Pickens, you can't really bench him. Now, you might want to think twice before starting a Commanders wide receiver because not just that this offense is bad, but backup quarterback Marcus Mariota left last week with an injury. We could be down to another third-string quarterback, and it would be journeyman extraordinaire Josh Johnson. How good can you feel about either Terry or Debo?
You can't feel good if it's Josh Johnson. I mean, this is a smash spot against this Cowboys defense, and it's like, how good can we feel? But I'll still say Terry's solid. I will say if Mariota plays and is good to go, I'll probably move him to strong. But as of right now, I'll say solid. And then Debo, just a risky flex because it is still this Cowboys defense.
Only because it's the Cowboys defense, I'll say, and only if Mariota is playing, I could maybe put Terry the low end of the solid tier and Debo as a flex, barely. And if it's not, if it's Josh Johnson, I'm sorry, Terry is barely a flex and Debo would be a no-go. Second game on Christmas Day, it's going to be the Lions at the Vikings. Amon-Ra St. Brown not coming off his best performance, but he's still a must start. What about J-Mo? I mean, he just continues to be, dare I say, consistent.
Consistently involved. It's not a great spot here, obviously, against this Vikings defense, but he's been too involved to bench here. He's got to be solid.
Yeah, he's gone from volatile to solid, and like I said, the targets are there, the receptions are there. The upside is still there, although it's not a great matchup on paper. Look, they're going with him. He's going to be a high upside wide receiver 2 once again. And on the other hand, we got the Vikings receivers just when there was a glimmer of hope and Justin Jefferson had a nice first half last week. J.J. McCarthy went down. It may be Brosmer time again. I mean, does that just completely kill the value of everyone, including J.J.?
It has to. We saw Max Brosmer the last time. Absolutely terrible. The only thing that maybe gives me hope is it's the Lions, and the Lions defense looks so bad. But man, if it's Max Brosmer, there's no way I can do this.
Brutal timing, not for the Vikings. I mean, they're not going to make the playoffs anyways. But yeah, you're right. Over the past month, the Lions have given up the most fantasy points to wide receivers. And yeah, this could be a game that may be high scoring. If it's Brosmer, you just can't across the board. You just can't. If McCarthy somehow plays, then I guess you could squeeze JJ into your flex and hope for the best. And then the final game on Christmas Day is going to be the Broncos at the Chiefs. 2 teams that are going in opposite directions, to put it lightly. So let's start with the Broncos receivers. Got Courtland Sutton, We're not going to have Pat Bryant after that brutal injury, but maybe that means better things for Troy Franklin, who's started to come alive again.
Yeah, I think it does here. I got to say Courtland Sutton against this Chiefs defense. Trent McDuffie probably not going to play. Sutton's been so good the last couple of weeks. He's got to be a very solid start here. And then I'll say Troy Franklin could be a strong flex because, like you said, Pat Bryant out. That puts him back as the number 2 target in this offense. And the Chiefs defense these days should not scare you.
Yeah, interestingly enough, I think we thought that this game could be a shootout, right? If it was Mahomes and all parties involved. And that's why you like Sutton and Franklin, because they might have to pass a lot. And no, you probably should like these receivers because they're going to have an easy time scoring against the Chiefs, who just lost to the Titans. I mean, come on. Sutton is solid, and Franklin, I'm not going to go crazy, but I think he's a very high upside flex. And with the Chiefs now down to their 3rd string quarterback, anyway, you can even think about a Chiefs receiver against this Broncos defense.
Nah, I don't even care if Rashee Rice comes back. No chance.
Now, while you're locking in those players for your fantasy lineups before Christmas Day, don't forget, lock in your underdog picks. It's still a great time to sign up if you haven't yet. You'll get a free pick on Christmas Day. It's Jahmyr Gibbs, just going higher than 0 combined yards. It's a gimme pick, and you get that for signing up for the first time on Underdog. If you use code ENDGAME at checkout, you'll also get something every day in your lobby. It's Underdog Unwrapped. You get profit boosts, you'll get free picks, and so much more. So check it out now. Don't forget, you still also get your deposit match, and as soon as you play $5 towards any picks, you get another $100 in bonus funds. Just make sure you use code ENDGAME before you check out. Now let's talk about the first of 2 Saturday games this week. Gotta make sure you get all your players locked in your lineups nice and early. So we got the Texans at the Chargers. Nico Collins, still a guy you just keep in your lineup. Any other Texans receivers of interest here?
Nah, on the road against this tough Chargers defense, Nico or bust.
Yeah, it looks like Dalton Schultz is basically next in line for targets. And after that, again, I know Jaden Higgins was nice for a little while, but you can't risk it. Not a good matchup. You just have to move on. Now, amazingly, we kind of have to say the same thing about the Chargers, though we've had guys who have popped off here and there. And even last week, we had 2 players, Ladd and Quentin Johnson, have pretty good fantasy games. Keenan Allen did something, but this matchup is the total opposite end of the spectrum, even though we're still in Texas.
Yeah, that was the Cowboys. This is the Texans. Like, you cannot feel good here. I'm going to say Ladd a flex, and I almost just want to say sit. The other guys, I am just going to say sit. This is as tough as it gets.
I'm going to do it. I'm just going to say sit across the board. We saw rookie Trey Harris get as many targets. You know, he's out there as much as these other guys. This is turning into kind of a frustrating wide receiver committee. I just don't think there's enough upside here.
Do you want to get advice from Pierre and myself at the tip of your fingertips? Start sit, waiver wire, trades, and more? Well, you can do all of this and more on our new app, Draft Lane. We have the ability to view your roster, waivers, and more to give you the right feedback to make the perfect choice. Download Draft Lane from the App Store or Google Play, or use these handy QR codes. And first-time users can use code ENDGAME to get 10 free credits and get your questions answered today.
And the late game on Saturday is going to be the Ravens at the Packers. A lot of questions here as far as not only the receivers, but who's going to play quarterback. Both teams had their starting quarterback leave last week early due to injury. So it could be Lamar Jackson, it could be Tyler Huntley, it could be Jordan Love, could be Malik Willis. What does that mean, first of all, for Zay Flowers?
Man, this is brutal because Zay Flowers has been really good lately right after that long stretch of just being kind of like okay to bad. He's been really good the last few weeks. You want to fire him up. Not scared of this Packers, pass defense at all, but like I will say, even if it's Tyler Huntley's not the worst option here. We've seen him before. I mean, certainly not Lamar. So I'm going to say with or without Lamar, a strong flex this week.
Yeah, he has come on. And again, it's not just 1-2 games, 3 straight games. He has been producing. He's averaged 92 yards over the last 3 weeks. And they need this game. I mean, especially after last week, they absolutely need to win here. So again, I don't think it is a big drop off either. I'm going to put Zay as a solid option here, no matter who the quarterback is. Now the Packers, not so easy. We don't have one receiver to think about. We've got like 5, but let's talk about the main ones. Christian Watson came back and played, but didn't do much. Romeo Doubs did do a lot, but then he left with an injury. And then there's Jaden Reed, who always seems to do just enough to barely be fantasy relevant. Do you like anybody this week, with or without Love?
Well, I'm going to go with the assumption that Love is not going to play this week. I mean, that, he's ruled out pretty quick with that concussion. Got to think he's probably going to miss at least a game. Obviously, if he plays, that could change things here. But look, even Malik Willis dealing with a shoulder injury now, he might not even play. I mean, this is getting brutal here. This could be like the ugliest passing game of the week in a game we thought was going to be a great game. I'll say Watson, at least if Malik Willis plays, a strong flex because he does have that upside. Jaden Reed, Romeo Doubs with Malik Willis, I don't know if I want to do it.
Very frustrating, again, for Christian Watson owners just when he was coming on and he gets hurt. Now Love gets hurt. Look, if Love is back, I'm going to put him back into the solid tier. Christian Watson has proven himself. Just needs the quarterback situation to be right. Even with Willis, I think he's a high upside flex at the very least. Not doing with any other Packers receiver, basically. I'll just say, if both Lamar and Love are out, along with all these other quarterbacks that are gone, this might be the worst passing offense week of the entire season. Bucs at the Dolphins this week. All right, this is a Sunday game. Let's start with, a whole lot of Bucs receivers here. Mike Evans is back. Chris Godwin in the fold. Emeka Egbuka still technically there. And then, of course, there's also Jalen McMillan now. What happens this week?
Yeah, I think the only ones who really need to think about here are Evans and Godwin. I'm not starting McMillan. I'm not even starting Egbuka here. No chance. Even against the Dolphins, this still feels too risky. I think Evans has to be a strong start this week. I know he didn't have like a huge game last week, but he's clearly the number one guy here. And look, the game plan last week was like to barely throw the football. Maybe that'll be the game plan again this week. Who knows? But got to think Mike Evans should be a strong start this week. And I think Godwin is at least worth a flex. He is clearly the number 2 here.
Yeah, despite last week where they really actually came out and said during the game, Todd Bowles said, we're just going to run the ball as much as possible. Okay, I mean, I guess. Let's see if that works. Wait, it didn't work. Maybe they changed their minds this week, but it's still not expected to be a high-scoring game based on how these offenses have been playing lately. I still think Evans is very, very solid because he's getting those end zone looks and he's Mike Evans. Godwin is just a flex. Guys, don't even ask about Egbuka anymore. 1 catch last week. 1 catch. You don't have to ask. And for Miami was Quinn Ewers at quarterback. Sounds like it'll be Ewers again in week 17. So, any interest in Jalen Waddle?
I mean, barely. Only because it's the Bucs and they're so bad against wide receivers. But, I mean, come on. Quinn Ewers, how good can we feel here? Just a flex. And look, I know Malik Washington scored on that end around, but let's not chase that, please.
No, Malik Washington, that was just one of those fluky kind of plays. Only in leagues where return yards count. Waddle wasn't too bad, 5 for 72. And this defense has not been very good lately. But at the same time, where's the ceiling? He's just a high upside flex. Patriots at the Jets this week. And so here we go again with the Pats doing the little rope-a-dope. Just when you forgot about Stephon Diggs, sure enough, they force-fed him the ball. So is this too good to be true? Now getting the Jets this week, are we going to get the rug pulled from underneath us?
I think we might. Look, I mentioned this a couple times on the streams last week. Mike Vrabel getting a lot of questions about why Stephon Diggs isn't playing. I have a feeling they're going to go to Stephon Diggs a ton in this game. And they did. But now they get the Jets. They might feel like we don't really need Stephon Diggs this week. You can just go play 50% of the snaps again and it will be fine. But, I mean, it is the Jets. They've been horrible on defense. I think you got to find out here. I'm going to say Diggs, low end solid. I'll say Matt Collins. Look, he's been involved. I'm going to say in this matchup, you can flex him. And Kayshon Boutte, I know he got a little banged up on that non-pass interference call where he got absolutely tackled. And the ref was like, no, we're good here because that's just how NFL officiating is these days. It's they just call whatever randomness they feel like. But if he plays, I think he's at least worth a flex, a risky flex, because it's the Jets.
Well, I don't know. Too much risk there for Boutte. He's disappeared lately. I don't know. I can't risk a guy whose floor is 0. Matt Collins seems to be the guy who's, look in the first half, he was getting more targets even than Diggs. I'm not sure why all of a sudden he's one of Drake May's favorite receivers. He's flex worthy, apparently, especially against the Jets. And then Diggs, I'm ready. I'm fully ready to be bamboozled again, but for now, let's just pretend that he's a solid option. On the other hand, I am completely done pretending that anybody in the Jets offense is worth playing in fantasy this week. Are you with me on that?
Yeah, this is championship week. Please tell me you don't need one of these guys.
Steelers at Browns, and so, well, here we go. It's true. DK Metcalf actually did get into a fight with a fan in the stands. Not a good idea. So what do they do now at wide receiver in Pittsburgh? Anybody benefit here?
I mean, Calvin Austin probably the guy who's going to benefit here. But I mean, even DK Metcalf is like barely doing anything as the wide receiver one here. It's like Kenneth Gainwell is truly the wide receiver one here. I'm not starting any Steelers wide receiver.
No, if a guy hasn't been relevant up until now, why all of a sudden they're going to throw it to Gainwell, going to throw it to the tight ends, going to spread it around? No, don't even think about this. And we could probably continue to not think about any Browns receiver. Right about that?
Yeah, I don't even know who you would like. Jerry Jeudy? No thanks.
We're going to have a lot of wide receivers to think about in the Jaguars-Colts matchup here. Start with the Jag side. Maybe some fantasy goodness all across the board here. You got Jacoby Myers, Brian Thomas Jr., now Parker Washington coming off a monster game. So the question is, schematically, is there one guy who stands out more than the other?
I don't know about that. I mean, you should feel good about all of them against this Colts defense. I mean, the 49ers had no problem throwing the ball against them last week. I don't think the Jags and Trevor Lawrence, the way he's playing right now, going to have any problem. I'll still prefer Jacoby Myers here. I feel like he is still the wide receiver one. I'm going to say he's solid. I'm going to say BTJ has to be a strong flex. I was wrong. I thought Surtain would not shadow BTJ because BTJ moved into the slot a lot. Nope, he shadowed him even in the slot. He just went wherever BTJ went last week. So that's why he did nothing, but he should be better this week. They don't have anybody like that. And I'm going to say Parker Washington. I know he went off last week, but that's because Riley Moss was covering Jacoby Myers. Surtain was covering BTJ, and he got the softer coverage for Denver. Not going to be the case this week, just a flex.
Yeah, so I think all three of them do have relevance in fantasy this week. Parker Washington obviously not going to do that again. He was the guy who was the most open, but at the same time, I mean, look at this Colts defense. Besides the fact they're giving up a ton of points to wide receivers in general, but they just got carved up by the tight end George Kittle last week. And so the Jags don't have a George Kittle. They have a really good slot receiver in Parker Washington. I think he is a strong flex option. BTJ, definitely a flex-worthy option as well. And then, again, Myers still looks like the number one guy here, so let's keep him solid. Now, I finally feel like we can talk about Colts receivers. Phillip Rivers showed he's got a little something left in the tank here. Interestingly enough, the target division here seems to be very different than when it was Daniel Jones. So we saw Josh Downs getting the most action. We saw Alec Pierce getting the most fantasy points. Michael Pittman was like third of the trio. What do you think happens this week?
Yeah, I mean, who knows? But I will say I think Pierce is still the guy I would prefer here because he's got that big play potential, touchdown upside. I'll say strong flex, although we do have to remember they're going from the 49ers defense to the Jaguars defense. This is definitely a tier or two better here, so can't get too excited. I'll say Downs and Pittman just flexes. They just still feel kind of like floor plays to me.
Agree. I don't think we can put any of these guys higher than the flex range. This is a much tougher matchup, like you said. Pierce is the guy who continues to find the end zone, so let's just put him as the best of these choices. I think Pittman is barely startable, but you never know. Things could change this week. Saints facing the Titans this week. All right, much fewer options here. I mean, the Saints, it's basically Chris Olave or bust, but man, Chris Olave went off last week. Could he do it again against Tennessee? Could he be a sneaky league winner?
He might be. Why not? I mean, I know the Titans defense is not quite as bad as the Jets defense, but they're still pretty bad here. You should have no fear. Tyler Shuck looks good. It's all Chris Olave and Jawan Johnson basically in the passing game. He's got to be a very solid start.
Yeah, he's got to. Can't go must because, you know, if you're this deep into the fantasy playoffs, you probably got a lot of good options. But over the last 8 weeks, the Titans have given up the most yards per target. 2 wide receivers. You saw what Olave did last week. Tyler Shuck looks better every week. So let's go high and solid. On the Titans side, unfortunately, even though Cam Ward has shown some progress and they're winning games all of a sudden, is there any receiver who you could actually consider?
Nah, it could be a tight end. It could be one random wide receiver. You can't gamble on this.
Now, I almost mentioned DK as like a deep waiver wire add as a flex because he could score, but that's all you're getting is a maybe touchdown. I think we need to do better this week. Seahawks at the Panthers this week. It's a big game here. Hard to do better than JSN. You got him, you start him. Any other Seahawk that might do something against Carolina here? Rashid Shaheed or Cooper Kupp?
I mean, maybe Rashid Shaheed runs back a punt again or something, but I don't know. This just doesn't. This feels too. This is championship week. Like, I hope you don't need one of these guys.
No, I can't pin my hopes on Cooper Kupp. Look, Shaheed continues to be involved. I mean, he seems to be more comfortable every week. Obviously, if you get special teams points, that's a whole different thing. But even just in your regular old PPR leagues, I think he could be flexed. As far as the Panthers go, well, Ted McMillan showed out last week, but even though they're at home, this is a much tougher matchup. And then Jalen Coker, I mean, I don't know. After last week, maybe Cokeheads need to disband.
Yeah, not doing this again. Like, we got some random questions about like total dice rolls. It's like, maybe take a chance on Coker. All right, let's not do that again this week. Ted, I think he should be okay this week. It helps that they are at home, but is this going to be a game where like they're gonna, the Bucs are just so bad against wide receivers. The Seahawks so good against wide receivers. I don't know. I don't want to go too crazy here just because he had a big game last week. I'm just gonna say strong flex.
Agree. Strong flex. I mean, very talented receiver, and we've seen the kind of plays he can make, but we just don't know when those opportunities are going to come. And like I said, the Seattle defense is legit. So volatile, definitely has a high ceiling, but risky flex. And then Coker, look, he didn't do nothing, 3 for 47, but it's not enough. Again, the target share is never guaranteed here. He is not a guy you want to start. Cardinals at the Bengals this week. Jamar Chase, absolutely a fixture in your lineup. Wish we could say the same about, Michael Wilson, but Marvin Harrison Jr. will not let that happen. He came back last week and had all of 1 catch on 3 targets. I know we could go on and on about this, but let's keep it short and sweet here. How do you feel about their fantasy value this week, Harrison and Wilson?
Well, unfortunately, I don't think you can start Michael Wilson anymore. We got to think Harrison's going to be more involved. I mean, he came back and, like I said, he was just annoyingly there enough. If it wasn't for that crazy touchdown catch for Michael Wilson, he would have been an absolute bust last week. I'll just say Michael Wilson a flex because it's the Bengals, but even that feels high. This is terrible, to be honest. This is one of the worst things that's happened in fantasy this year, not even going to lie. Marvin Harrison, I guess I'll just say like a strong flex because it's the Bengals, but this feels generous. I just want Marvin Harrison to go away, to be honest.
Would be nice, but definitely not always going to get the things we want. Yeah, Harrison can be more than a flex. Again, barely involved last week. Clearly doesn't seem 100%. He even had a chance to make a great catch in the end zone. Didn't do it. Is this guy really an elite receiver? Anyways, look, his only really good big game of the season came against the Cowboys. Not facing the Cowboys this week. He's just a flex, and Wilson is a flex that I slightly prefer. Now, if you have T. Higgins, you could feel much better about him. Does he go off again?
I mean, why not? At home against his defense, you got T. Higgins, you start him. Strong start.
Yeah, absolutely strong start. This week, the Giants facing the Raiders. All right, can't lie. This is probably not going to be a very high-octane passing attack from either team, especially the Giants, who seem to really not want to even throw the ball at all last week. Are the value of guys like Wan'Dale Robinson and Darius Slayton just in the tank?
I mean, pretty close. I can't say completely in the tank because it is the Raiders, at least. Like, that was the Vikings, Brian Flores defense. I got to think they're going to throw it a little bit more this week, but I'll just say Wan'Dale Robinson, a strong flex. At least he should have some upside this week. And then Darius Slayton, to me, boom bust flex. You need that home run. You're looking for the upside. He could boom this week against the Raiders, but he could also bust.
Yeah, I think, again, Slayton's a guy this week. The way that offense has looked, way too risky. I can't do it. Wan'Dale could always be a flex option. Don't feel like a big game is in store for him either. Giants are just seeming to want to just play out the rest of the season, and why not? So he's a flex, but one I don't completely trust. And likewise, there can't be a lot of trust in this Raiders passing attack, even with Geno Smith back.
Nah, not starting these guys in my championship game. If I even have them, which, come on, nobody has these guys on their fantasy roster right now, right?
Now we got the Eagles at the Bills. Should be a good one. So now we got to figure out which AJB shows up. I mean, he's pretty much shown up over the last several weeks. And then Devontae Smith finally had himself a pretty nice game last week, but who shines more?
Well, I got to give the preference to A.J. Brown. He's mostly been good, lately here. But this is going to be a tough one this week because this is a tough spot on the road in Buffalo. I know we don't want to sell the weather, but this could be a cold, wet type of game here. But at the same time, I think AJB's been so good, he's got to be solid. And then I'll say Devonta Smith. I'm just going to say a strong flex. Probably my favorite strong flex, though. Maybe I should almost even say borderline solid. But the Bills have been good against wide receivers, but he always does have that upside.
Well, I'm with you there. You cannot ignore the massive target share AJB's gotten. So even in a tough spot, I think he's got to be above all the other guys we've listed as flexes. So he's solid. And Smith, again, high upside flex, as he is a lot of weeks. I figure this game might come down to the battle of the two running backs. Now on the Buffalo side, they're going to mixing things up at wide receiver. Coach's decision, sitting guys like Keon Coleman and Gabe Davis, putting Tyrell Shavers out there. Let's face it, the only guy you should think about is Khalil Shakir. And how much are you thinking about him?
I mean, not a lot. I mean, what has he even done lately? Now this Eagles defense, barely a flex.
Agree. Can't completely ignore him. He does get targeted the most out of these receivers for what that's worth. But as I just said, don't feel like this will be a pass-heavy game anyways. Sunday night, it's going to have the Bears at the Niners. Let's start with the what-ifs. All right, what if Rome Odunze plays? Or Luther Burden, maybe he plays too. And then what does that mean for DJ Moore, who did reap the benefits of their absence last week?
I mean, he barely reaped the benefits. It took a long touchdown in overtime here. I'm going to say DJ Moore, even if these guys are out. I know it's a good matchup. It's the 49ers. I'm just going to say a flex. This still feels very risky. I mean, this guy was doing nothing that whole game. I'll say Odunze, Burden, if they play, I'm going to call them strong flexes because it's the 49ers. It's a good matchup. I mean, they made Phillip Rivers look pretty good on Monday night.
Well, that's true, but then there's the thing, this whole Bears pass attack, it's just inconsistent. Don't know who's going to get more targets. I don't feel great about Rome even if he comes back. So I'm just going to throw all these guys, lump them together as a flex option. I don't think we can even figure this out until the weekend comes. A little more clear on the Niners side. Juwan Jennings continues to roll. Ricky Pearsall continues to be hurt. What if Pearsall comes back?
I don't even care. I'm not starting Ricky Pearsall. I'm not doing this. I'm not putting him in my lineup and watching him, lead the game in the first quarter or something. Like, I think you got Jennings. You just keep rolling with this guy. He's been great lately. Gets the Bears. That doesn't scare me one bit. He's got to be solid.
Yeah, absolutely. This whole Niners offense has looked good. Again, they got pretty much all their pieces back in their defense. They're not getting those major pieces back. So I guess the Bears, absolutely, Jennings is solid. Pearsall, maybe next year. Then Rams at the Falcons. That's Monday night. Not many decisions to make here. If you have Puka, you start him. If you have Devontae Adams, you can drop him because he's not playing this week. And if you have Drake London, well, what do you do?
Well, I mean, obviously did not come back and light it up last week. Got to think he'll be at least a little bit healthier this week. And look, this could turn into kind of like the game we saw last week. This could turn into a very high-scoring back-and-forth game here. So I'm going to say like solid, but low-end risky solid.
I wish I had more confidence. And again, it's not London, it's the situation. What I feared as a Drake London owner most is what happened. He, meaning Kirk Cousins, continued to target Kyle Pitts more, and Drake London barely involved here. Not even sure if he's 100%. I mean, I can't say he's a sit, but to me, he's just a high upside flex. But there you have it. Those are all the wide receivers you might need to think about for Week 17. You might want to think about running back, quarterback, tight end as well. We got you covered. Here's this week's playlist.